Hi everyone, my name is Kat and I'm from Kat's Creations, and I have been asked quite a few times to show people how to use a wood burning tool to cut your deco mesh. So I am going to do a short demo to show you two different ways that you can burn your deco mesh, and also answer any questions you guys might have in this super short tutorial. So I think we're good. So first of all, a couple things. So using a wood burning tool is going to be hazardous. So you want to make sure you don't have pets that are inclined to jump up on your counter when you're working, because our wood burning tool that I recommend is one that you can set for 425 degrees. So once you set it to 425 degrees, you'll be able to see that it does a really great job at cutting your deco mesh. So why would we cut deco mesh with a wood burning tool? Well, when I very first started using deco mesh in my wreaths, the one thing that most wreath makers hate is frays. And frays are those little leftover pieces that it just does not create a clean look for us. So people have been using impulse sealers, which are kind of like the devices that you use to do the seal meal things. I just prefer, it goes super quick to use a wood burning tool. It's much quicker, it's easier to store, and with wreath making, it's always going to be about where we're going to put it. So let me show you really quickly. This wood burning tool, I will post a link. It will be in the description box after this goes to replay, of where you can purchase the same one that I use. You will also need a tempered glass or glass cutting, I guess it's a cutting mat, but I don't see it as a cutting mat, cutting board. And what it does is it allows you to see the measurements through your glass. Mine is textured on one side and smooth on the other. I use the smooth side. And this cutting mat or cutting board is a 12 by 15, and I got it at Walmart for like $7. The cutting mat is a Fiskars, and this is a 12 by 17. I'll post my Amazon affiliate links for all of these in the description box below so that you can shop directly from there. But that's all you're going to need. So you need something, because you cannot use your wood burning tool to cut on your self-healing cutting mat. This is also what happens if you set your wood burning tool down and it's not on a tempered glass. You will actually go right through. It'll start to melt through your self-healing cutting mat. So word to the wise. So I prefer to use a smaller one, because most of the time I'm just cutting short pieces rather than dragging out a large cutting mat. Just having something small just makes it that much easier. Also, you want to cut in a well-ventilated area, because this puts off slight fumes. So make sure you have like your patio door open and then maybe the window behind you so that you got a good airflow. You can do it in your garage, you can do it outside on your patio, but it is life savings. So I'm going to zoom in super close so you guys can see. And I'm using, this is just a regular Deco poly mesh. So this is the ones that I prefer using, and I get my mesh from craftoutlet.com just because the price is good and the quality is amazing. So what you're going to do is, you notice that your deco mesh is made up of columns and rows. We're going to be focusing on the rows because that's what we're cutting, and you want to make sure that when you're opening your deco mesh roll for the first time that you have a straight cut on here. You know, sometimes it kind of looks like somebody pulled it from the middle, and so you have like a part where it, you know, it just goes from here and has a giant cutout. First thing you want to do is square up your deco mesh and get that nice clean cut. So I'm going to take a piece of advice that I got from Kathy Dyer on Kathy Dyer Wreaths that says, think of this as lanes on a freeway, right? Our lanes on our freeway are going vertically. And so when you start cutting with your wood burning tool, and I have the chisel bit, Let's see if I can try to get this to where you can kind of see what it looks like. It looks like a knife blade. So this is the tip point that I am using. It's like a little knife blade, and that came on my wood burning tool, so that's kind of nice. I don't have to change the things. And mine generally lasts me for about 2 years or so. It just depends on how well you take care of it, that you put it away and you store it well after you use it. But what you're going to want to do is wherever you start in your row, right, or column, let's say these are rows, left to right is rows, columns are going to be top to bottom. So wherever we start, you want to stay in your lane. You want to stay in your column the entire way down. Because if you notice when we pull our Deco mesh, you know, the columns can kind of like, they move on us. So we want to make sure if we're cutting a squared perfect piece that we stay in our column, because that will automatically square up our Deco mesh pieces. Even though it's going to kind of squiggle back and forth, it's just because that's how, you know, this is situating on the board. But when you go to pull it, make sure that you have your finished edge on the bottom and your finished edge on your top on your line. You don't want to be like, I have this one here and then the bottom is like short, because then you're not getting a true 10, like I'm going to do 10 by 10 pieces. We're going to cut them from here, and I'm going to pull it back, and I'm going to start, because I can see my line all the way through. I'm going to kind of go and give it just a little bit of an edge, and I'm going to stay in my lane. Just like cars on a freeway, right? We stay in our lane unless we go and merge. So there is a perfect piece. And so what it does is it seals the edge as I'm coming all the way down. So it's melting the edges right here. And then that stops all of your fray. Top finished edge and the bottom finished edge are both, you know, at the 10, you know, at our starting point. We want to find our line, and then we want to stay in it regardless of what the mesh does. If we're zigzagging in and out, just keep in mind it has nothing to do with how you're cutting it, because our cuts are perfectly squared pieces. This is what's happening with our mesh, is it's kind of does a little wonky thing. So just make sure you stay in your lane, okay? So that's how you would cut your regular Deco poly mesh. You would not be able to use a wood burning tool on anything that comes with cotton or jute or natural fibers in it. So like fabric mesh, you wouldn't be able to use your wood burning tool. A jute mesh, you would not be able to. Cotton drift mesh, you're going to get like half. It'll cut through the polypropylene portion of it, but then where it encounters your cotton fibers, it's going to stop at that point, and then it's just going to sit there and smoke, and then it's going to burn, and it's just, don't even do it. Rotary cutter for that, and then that's how you'll do that one. Now you can use it on the poly burlap mesh, which is what most of us are using for our flowers. So this one, it's the same thing, because this is now coated in that polypropylene fabric. So again, you're going to want to make sure that your bottom finished edge is lined up to your top, and you're going to pick a line, and you're simply going to stay in your lane or column all the way down. Okay, just like that, you have a nice perfectly squared up piece. Now on the poly burlap, it has a tendency of whatchamacallit, it'll still pull away. So you just have to be really super careful with this one, because the gaps between the columns and the rows are so big, and it's super what do you call it, the gaps are bigger, so it's easier to grab this fabric right here, and it's challenging, but you can still pull on it if you give it, you know, if it gets snagged or cut on other deco mesh that you're using while you're doing your sunflower. So just remember, it doesn't prevent it 100%, but it helps reduce it by, I would say, especially on the polypropylene, I would say like 90%. On the poly burlap, maybe 85%. You're still figure out where you're going. Quick. So I can cut through however many pieces I need as quickly as possible, rather than an impulse sealer. You have to press and hold it, then you got to wait, and then you still have to kind of separate and pull it. And then sometimes if you're pulling it and it hasn't sealed or cut all the way through, you could develop the fray like what I've encountered here. So any questions that I can help you with? Again, I will post the links for the wood burning tool that I recommend. You can get them at like all your home improvement stores. You can, they're usually the soldering irons for that. Carol keeps asking, can you use wood burner on fabric mesh? No, because it contains a fabric. So let me show you what happens when, let's see, really quick. Let's see if I have some fabric mesh. Let's see if these will work. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It just depends on how much fabric is in it. But here's like that cotton drift mesh, which is, remember how I told you it'll cut some but not all? So let me find this one. Let's trim this one up. Let's use a piece here to kind of hold that. So this is why you can't use it. Well, of course now it'll go all the way through. So it's not supposed to do this. So I'm wondering if the cotton is not 100% cotton. Hang on just a second. We just had a class and let's see. That's kind of interesting how it cut through the cotton fiber. Proving me wrong. But sometimes, you know, when in doubt, try it. But let's try this one. This is our jute fiber. And so you can see it'll cut through the plastic, but it's not cutting through the natural fibers. You can actually kind of see it's burning the jute here. See, it's not cutting my fibers, and so that's what it does. It just kind of creates this big, huge mess between here. And so these are cotton fibers, and then these are the jute fibers. So this one, sadly, while it'll go through the plastic part, every time it hits one of these threads, it's going to stop, and it's going to smoke. And so you just end up ruining your deco mesh. I don't know why it went through the cotton drift when it shouldn't have. And then let's try, I guess it would just depend on what your consistency would be. Like, what is it comprised of? This is striped fabric mesh. We shall see. Watch this work too. I'm going to try to do it right here on the end. And so this one is working, but what I do notice, let me get it down my column. And I don't know if you can see it here. Let me see if I can hold this up. What it has been doing right here is on the end, it's got little black tips on every single one of those fabric fibers that are there. So, you know, when in doubt, try it. And if it doesn't, if it cuts, great. If it doesn't, rotary cutter. So always try, you know, with the rotary cutter first, and then see if you can get a clear cut all the way through. And trust me, it will save your designs. You will be such a happy wreath maker because you've done it with the wood burning tool, versus trying to cut it with a rotary cutter, or I've seen people with scissors or electric scissors. It's like, why? Use the wood burning tool. It goes so much better. Just again, use it in a well ventilated area. I'm actually in an outside, it's like 900 square feet shop. So it's nice out here actually. It's well ventilated. So I don't need to worry about turning on an overhead fan or turning on a fan, but I caution you, use it in a well ventilated area because it does give off some fumes. And I hope you enjoyed this demo of how to wood burn your Deco mesh. All right, everyone. Well, have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And I'll talk to you then. Bye for now.